Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. I want to start out this podcast by saying thank you. Last week, when I had that podcast, it had been recorded right after Connor had his car accident, and it was a weird, emotional, and stressful time for me. And the outpouring of love and well wishes that I got from so many of you was really, it was overwhelming. It was wonderful. It was, gosh, I'm kind of speechless. And that doesn't happen often. So thank you. It meant the world to me. I also want to thank everybody that subscribed to my new channel, LeanBodyMind. So I think in the first day, I had about 1,000 subscribers. Right now it's sitting at about 1,700, which is a pretty good start for the first week. I got a little intro video. That's the only video I've got out there at the moment, but I'm going to start getting content filmed this week. I'm very, very excited about that as a channel. I'm excited because it's my other area of passion besides cooking is just process excellence or continuous improvement. And I think a lot of us, what we're doing here, one of the reasons we went keto is to improve ourselves. So keto is still going to be a little aspect of it. I really see them as being very much sister channels that dovetail with one another. And like I said in last week's podcast, one of the things that it will allow me to do is make sure that I keep serious keto pure, for lack of a better word. The focus periodically drifts a little bit away from keto on this channel, and I would like to keep this channel firmly in that keto space. So, keto cooking, keto product reviews, keto in the news, that sort of thing. It goes back to one of my previous podcasts where I talk about swimming in your own lane, and that's my lane for serious keto. So once I hit the point with LeanBodyMind that I can monetize it, which requires 4,000 total hours of view time, which that means I got to really start making some videos for that channel, then I'm going to be moving this podcast over to that channel. Now I will still have a probably monthly podcast on Serious Keto that is keto related or is an interview with other keto content creators. But since so much of this podcast is kind of become not specifically keto, I feel that LeanBodyMind is the better home for it. In what has sort of become a weekly or near weekly feature on this channel, it's time to talk about a little bit of YouTube goofiness. So in addition to the typical things that I see every week, which is disappearing comments, so I'll see a comment in notifications. I'll click on that comment and it's gone. It doesn't show up in Held for Review. It doesn't show up in the YouTube Creator Studio. It's just not there anymore. On the flip side, comments that ought to be showing up in Held for Review, so things that have especially nasty language or verbal attacks in them, are not showing up. I read one right before I started this podcast, and I really should never read comments before I start the podcast because there's a decent chance there's going to be a comment that has the potential to foul my mood a little bit. And there was one, some guy just unleashed a stream of insults and F-bombs on me. And I don't know why that didn't show up in Held for Review. That should have tripped just about every flag. Yet I had another comment that did show up in Held for Review where a woman said she felt that cumin smells like armpits. I don't know how that is something that needs to be reviewed and approved, yet someone can absolutely rip me a new one with a fury of F-bombs, and that doesn't trip any flags. But the new thing, and I was going to talk about this last week, but it seemed kind of insignificant in light of the other events that were going on, is I got an email from YouTube that went out to, I think, all content creators, basically stating that YouTube now reserves the right to place ads on any video, whether that video is monetized or not. So I monetize most of my videos. There are periodically ones, especially if I'm talking about perfect keto or something like that, telling you about a perfect keto sale, I won't monetize that. It doesn't feel right to put an ad in front of that when that itself kind of feels a little bit like an ad, even though I do talk smack about perfect keto fairly often. But now, in essence, what YouTube is saying is whether I choose to put an ad on something or not, or whether I even choose to have my channel monetized or not, they can still place an ad. And I went to place a mid-roll ad on one of my videos. I forget which one it was. It might have been the second podcast that I did with Dennis from Black Tie Kitchen, but anytime I get a video that gets over a certain length, I kind of feel like I should put a little bit of a break in between. It depends on the video and just the overall flow of it. But I decided I would put a break and an ad in that video, and I opened it up and saw that YouTube had already placed 4 mid-roll ads. So 4 interruptions over the course of 17 minutes for an ad. This is in addition to the ad they place at the beginning and end, actually from your perspective, beginning and end of a video. So 6 ads in 17 minutes. So I cleared out all of the mid-rolls and then just put one in the center. Now I don't know if YouTube can go back and put ads back in again after I've deleted their ads, but if you start seeing a lot more ads on YouTube, that's the reason why. And I'm not exactly sure what their strategy is. I think at some point you hit a point with these ads where people are going to make a decision either to buy YouTube Premium, which maybe that's the end game for YouTube. They want everybody on a subscription service. Or they just want people to go elsewhere. And I think that's a risk that YouTube runs if they are going to be so ad happy. Another regular topic on the podcast is the 24 and 21. And I realize we're at the middle of a month right now, so I shouldn't be talking about it. That's usually at the beginning of the month. What are going to be your new good habits or the bad habit that you get rid of? But I found that last week, with some of the stress and chaos of Connor's situation with the car, and then, how's he feeling? Is he healthy? He was supposed to go off to his 2 weeks of Army National Guard drill. Is that going to happen? And I didn't stick with the habits. I wasn't getting up early and going out and doing sprints and then a nice long listen to an audible book sort of walk. Probably had a little too much wine with dinner each night, so I didn't stick with that plan either. For the last 3 days, though, I've been performing well in terms of my habits, and it got me thinking a little bit about habits and reflecting on the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I started wondering which is better, to be consistent and maybe not great at a habit. So if, for example, one of the habits is getting up early and going for a walk, if I still get up early and decide, well, I'm not going to do sprints, I'm just going to do a walk and I'm not going to do a long walk, is it better to have consistency in your habit but not necessarily the quality of that habit? Or are you then just building a habit that's sort of not wholehearted? I forget who had the quote about habits and said, we are what we do repeatedly. So if we are repeatedly doing something that's supposed to be a good habit and not doing it all that well, are we just establishing a habit of not doing things all that well? It's my opinion that consistency is the important thing, and that so long as I'm doing it, even if I'm not doing it perfectly, that habit starts to get ingrained. And some days you're going to be on, some days you're not. But if you make it a promise to yourself that you are going to do this habit, long term, you'll be successful. That's my opinion. I'd like to hear your thoughts though. Let me know down in the comments below. Now, one thing I can absolutely look to as a big success in my 24 for 21 is the whole no longer nail biting thing. I mean, I'm 53 and I've been biting my nails since I had teeth, I think. And I have been really good about the not biting my nails thing. In fact, I have no desire at all to bite them. And it used to just be such a nervous habit of mine. So as we go through 24 and 21, if you're not perfect at everything, still, if you establish a couple good habits, I think it's all worthwhile. So if you don't have an opinion on what's better, consistency or quality of habits, I'd like to hear, as we're about halfway through the year, which habit have you established this year as a good habit or gotten rid of as a bad habit that you're most proud of and that you feel you're really going to stick with? Again, let me know down in the comments. I love reading this stuff. And as I get ready to take the single ad break in this video, one of the common questions that I get from people is, I didn't see an ad break. The screen just went black for like 3 seconds and then you were back. How'd that happen? Well, Just because I place an ad break doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be an ad there. Sometimes it may be a little pop-up down at the bottom of the screen, sometimes it's an ad break, sometimes it's nothing. But at least by specifying that this is the time an ad break should be placed, it doesn't wind up cutting into the middle of a sentence someplace. So you're either going to see a brief black screen, and I'll be back in a couple of seconds, or you'll see an ad, and at some point during that ad, there'll be a button that says skip. Up to you if you want to watch it. I recently did a video on blood glucose monitoring and continuous glucose monitoring. I'll link to it up here. And in it, at the end, I started talking about wearables and some of the future of glucose monitoring and potentially even other biometrics. And in my Google newsfeed this week, I got an article from medgadget.com, which I'll link to down in the description, about a sweat sensor for non-invasive glucose measurement. Kind of cool. I'll read a little bit of this article to you. It says, researchers at the University of California, San Diego have developed a sweat sensor that measures glucose levels on the skin and converts those readings into accurate blood sugar estimates. That seems like a bit of an odd sentence to me. You say accurate, but then you say estimate. I think those two are sort of mutually exclusive. Anyhow, as glucose levels and sweat can vary from person to person, the sensor incorporates algorithms that personalize the measurement for each user, requiring finger prick calibration once or twice each month. Now, it doesn't indicate in this article whether there is some consumable aspect of this, like, a glucose test strip or something like that. It does indicate, though, that the test requires 1 minute each time you do it. You need to apply the sensor for at least 1 minute. And it concludes with saying, so far the device has been tested in a small number of volunteers and could accurately predict blood glucose levels before and after a meal with over 95% accuracy. I find this stuff interesting because it gives us a glimpse into the future of where some of this monitoring could go. And although there's no details about when it will be available, about price, about consumables like I mentioned before, it's still kind of cool to know that people are working on this, and at some point in our future, we may have devices like this that are wearables and can integrate right with our phone. On the subject of glucose testing and continuous glucose monitors, Levels reached out to me this past week. They're having what they call the Coke Challenge. What Levels wants to do is get 100 volunteers, so you've got a decent statistical sample size. Unlike my personal tests where n equals 1, they're going to have 100 people. Now they've already closed the volunteer portal on this. I think it closed on Saturday. But for each of the volunteers, the ask is that they consume a can of Coke. And Levels will be providing the Coke to everybody just to make sure that it's consistent. So you consume a can of Coke, do no physical activity, and see what the impact is on your blood glucose. Then, a day or two later, you drink a second can of Coke and you go out for a walk. And what they have found within their own staff is that there is a significant decrease in the blood glucose response just by going out for a walk after having something like a Coke. Now, Tom from Levels asked if I wanted to be part of this, and I said, sorry, not going to do it. I'm not going to drink a Coke. I haven't had a Coke probably since high school. I had a sip of my wife's Pepsi Zero, so the black can stuff. I managed to at least get her off of regular Pepsi. Baby steps. But she had a Coke Zero, or not a Coke Zero, a Pepsi Zero, and I took one swallow of it and just felt ill. It was so cloyingly sweet. I can't even imagine drinking a regular soda. So I told Tom, no, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I'm to the point, even on these resistant starch videos, I've got maybe one more in me. It's just, I don't enjoy doing them. I don't enjoy jacking around with my blood glucose. I'd rather keep it fairly stable. And, I feel I've taken enough for the team. The one final video that I'm probably going to do on resistant starch is testing the claim that consuming straight up cold resistant starch, like Bob's Red Mill potato starch, consuming that after a higher glycemic meal blunts the glucose response. And even then, the simple answer should be, well, just don't eat a higher glycemic meal. I mean, that's why we're keto. But I feel I kind of have to do it just to finish testing the various claims of resistant starch that I can test. I mean, I can't test the claim that it's good for your gut biome, but I can test this other claim that supposedly if you consume some quantity of it a certain period of time after, I think even before, a higher glycemic meal, that it will blunt your blood glucose response. But that's going to be it. I'm tired of doing those tests. It just, they wear me out. And they're long videos to make too. It takes a week or more to make a video like that. And in the same time that I'm doing a video like that, I could be knocking out, 2 or 3 cooking videos. In terms of last week's Easter egg, it's a Packer Pez dispenser. Ginormous Packer Pez dispenser. In fact, I don't have any Pez. Wow, I didn't know it was going to do that. That's kind of wild. Man, the batteries in this must last forever. So unlike a regular Pez dispenser, which just dispenses single Pez tablets, this one dispenses entire packets or rolls or whatever you call them. Anyhow, Easter egg. So that's going to be it for this podcast, a shorter one today. I would encourage you, if you enjoy the podcast and like hearing my voice, get out onto LeanBodyMind, because there's going to be a lot of hearing my voice. There's also going to be how-to videos, explainer videos, all kinds of stuff. Just sort of looking at ourselves holistically and how we can better ourselves, have a better life, a more efficient life, a more productive life. As always, thanks for watching or listening.